Hi and welcome to Shaky Sports Journeys. Thank you very much again for joining us. Great guest again for you today. Someone who's actually quite close to home now, fellow person in Scotland as well. So we'll get on to talking about that. This gentleman has coached the likes of New Zealand A, Vanuatu women's ladies, which I got corrected on before we started. Some time in Northern Districts in New Zealand, and latterly worked with the Pakistani women's team out there, and is now the head coach of the Wildcats Scotland ladies team. I say hello and welcome to Mark Coles. How are you, sir?
Bonnie Scotland to you, and assalamu alaikum as well.
Walaikum salam, sir. Walaikum salam. Well, alhamdulillah. All well, sir. Good to see you've touched up on your Urdu while you were out in Pakistan. Great to see. I never even got that off Grant Bradburn when he came on the podcast. So you've trumped him already. Well done. What I want to do is take you through a bit of a journey today, Mark, on your background, on some of the amazing things you've done in the coaching world, especially with women's cricket, and just some other bits and pieces in your personal life and stuff that you've faced along the way. But what I want to start by doing is you played a bit of cricket yourself at a good level, but seemed to be cut short by injuries. But tell me a bit about it.
Yeah, I guess I followed in Dad's footsteps a little bit. I was probably always a little bit in his shadow. He played for Wellington and played for New Zealand A, and was in with the likes of the Cairns and the Hadleys of the world, but had a decent first-class career back then because they played so few games. But I sort of ended up with a back injury, and about 14 and 15 it first started to happen, and then by the time I got to 25, 26, I was ruined again. So that kind of ended my career. I played a little bit of lower grade cricket as a batter, but didn't really enjoy batting too much, and I wasn't that great at it. So,
were you a bowler?
Yeah. The old man was a bowler, and I sort of tried to follow in his footsteps. But so it's sort of just, it still causes me pain today. I've got to wear orthotics and all sorts of stuff. But it ended my career. How good I would have been, I don't know. You always think that you're probably a bit better than what you are, but. That was the end of that. And so I thought, well, I want to try and give back to the game. Umpiring wasn't my thing because I would have probably given the bowlers too many LBWs. So if I hit some on the pads, that was never going to work for the batters. And so I decided that I'd ring up Irv McSweeney, who was the CEO of Cricket Wellington at that stage, he's former black cap himself, and said, look, I've done my level 2. I'm interested in doing a level 3 coaching certificate. Would you have any teams? And by the next day, he said, yeah, I do. They've got the Wellington women's team. And I sort of said, yeah, do they play cricket? I wasn't really sure of that because I didn't really follow it too much. And then all of a sudden I was thrust into the life of women's cricket for a little bit.
Well, it's gone from strength to strength to strength, and you've obviously remained in women's cricket. But so what was that like for you when you walked into the changing room for the first time, or were around the women's squad? Obviously, like you've been honest there, you knew very little about it. Were you pleasantly surprised with what you've seen?
Yeah, I don't think I was very good at it to start with, because I was sort of trying to coach them like a men's team and, get all aggressive and all of that. And it's completely different to how we play cricket. That's not to say that the game is any different, but the way that they go about it is quite different in their attitude. They want to have a bit more fun. And not have that really competitive attitude until, you and I can play a game of marbles, and until one of us wins, we keep going. But they're a little bit like, well, if it's 5-5, we'll just call it a draw and come back tomorrow. And that's just the way that females operate. There's nothing wrong with it. They'd like just to have some fun and enjoy what they're doing and be challenged and learn things. So that wasn't, it was okay for me, but it wasn't great. And then one of the players that I got very close to, who plays for New Zealand, she ended up dying suddenly of meningitis. So I walked away from it for a little bit. And that sort of affects me to this day. My second daughter's middle name is named after Francis King, and went into men's cricket for a while as well. So I was sort of very mixed and backwards and forwards. I really only got into it when we went to Western Australia after coaching Vanuatu as the high performance manager there, and got back into women's cricket for a while. And then since then, I've pretty much been involved with it again. So, yeah, that's a little bit about how I got into female cricket.
So Vanuatu, how was that? How was that? I don't know much about Vanuatu as a country. What was it like?
Yeah, well, they're a little wee country, 55,000 people in total, so not many. It's a little South Pacific country about 3 hours from New Zealand, and we ended up living there. Great little place, fantastic people, and ended up doing quite well. We ended up, I think, being 42nd in the world from 48. So we moved up a few places, and I was in charge of the high performance program, which covered off men's and women's cricket. We didn't have a women's team at that stage, but we managed to get one, and that was our first national team. So to this day, they've still got a national women's team, and it's growing from strength to strength. And a funny little backstory to that was 2 years ago, we were in Melbourne, and I was walking down George Street. We went into a shop, and then all of a sudden there was these couple of voices, and there were two young guys that I'd coached in Vanuatu who had followed me and my wife into the shop, and I hadn't seen them for 10 years. So it was an amazing meeting just to catch up with them. It was just like seeing them. It was like we'd never, it was like yesterday that I saw them. So it was fantastic that you still have those relationships and memories that we all had, and a great time. So we had a really good chat in the middle of Country Road. I'm sure the people in Country Road thought, what the heck is going on here? As we reunited with laughter and hilarity about not seeing each other after 10 years. So that's the special thing that I think cricket brings people together.
Oh, absolutely. Small world. Small
yeah.
Can I just ask you, Mark, to move back a little bit, because I don't want to lose your lovely face in the screen when I edit this, because that's it. You're good. You're right on the screen now. Very interesting. So you were learning as you were going along. You were learning in the job very early doors on what the challenges were of women's cricket, etc. And then you went on to bigger roles where you coached the New Zealand A ladies team.
Yeah, that was when I was back with Wellington. So it was sort of, I helped out with a series there with a guy called Michael Shrimpton. Obviously he's passed away, but he was a former New Zealand cricketer as well. So that was a really good experience for me. And he was a fantastic fellow, and just he's the only coach that's ever won a World Cup for the White Ferns. And looking at them the other night, I think it will probably still remain that way. But just had a really gentle nature with the girls, and it was a great learning experience to be sort of alongside him and his expertise and his knowledge of the female game. And I took a lot from him as I was doing my level 3 coaching certificate in New Zealand. So I got a great lot of respect for Mike. And, we always used to sort of chat together, and we ended up, when I was coaching Northern Districts, he was still coaching at 73 years old. And we
That's
caught up again.
For you.
Yeah. So I've still got a couple of years left.
Oh, plenty light. You mentioned Northern Districts there. It's a place I'm very familiar with. I spent a season in Whangarei. Great part of the world. Great cricket down there. What was your role with ND?
I work for Waikato Valley Cricket, which is part of Northern Districts region. It's quite a big region. It's about 600 kilometres our area was. So big area. And then we were also in with the Hawke Cup stuff with Northland, who you will be familiar with. There was Northland, Bar Plenty, Waikato Valley, Hamilton, and those teams as well. So we played against each other. It was a decent level of cricket. It was below first class level, but it was a reasonable bit of cricket. So I was sort of high performance manager and development manager for that region, which was a great job, very busy because we only had two full-time staff, and I did a bit of women's cricket there as well. So it was a busy job. It was rewarding, and I think the great thing was we left that team in a better place, and we've got the likes of Tim Sightford playing for New Zealand now, and a couple of other young men have gone on and are playing for Northern Districts, and one's recently got a contract down in Otago. So we had a really good group of young guys come through, and now they're making their way in the first class scene in New Zealand, which is so good to see.
I take it that's your guilty pleasure when it comes to coaching, that you love to see what happens beyond the time that you've worked with these players. You want to see success stories and see people going on to make a career of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's no secret that it just gives you that really good buzz. And I actually heard from Timmy Sightford yesterday. He's married now, which has come out of the blue, really. I didn't pick that. I had him on about it as well. I said, my goodness me, you're the heavyweight champion of the world, my friend. But it was good to see that he's playing in the CPL at the moment, and then he's heading to the T20 World Cup, and He was a great kid, Tim, when he was growing up. When I was there, he was 15. He was doing exams. So now I look at him and think, wow, you know,
next he'll be a dad, and next there'll be all these other things that you're
thinking. But it's so good that you can have those chats now on social media, and he's on one side of the world, I'm on the other. But there's a couple of other kids in there as well that have done really well. Jake Gibson's another one. Zach Gibson was another one, and they're all making their way in their different teams. So it's really good to see that they're playing first class cricket and you know, forging out a career in cricket, which is, as you say, it's a real coaching buzz that you had something to do with them in a small way.
You and the family then decided to make a move. You went over to the lovely Sunshine Coast. I've been to Sunshine Coast. What a beautiful part of the world. Not a bad place to go and settle down.
Yeah, we got married over there in 2017, and we always said that we would go back. So in February 2020, we were very, very lucky because COVID hadn't hit in that side of the world, that we managed to sneak in just before it did hit in March of 2020, and we've moved in, and they're very settled, and the lifestyle was fantastic. And I took up a part-time position with the Sunshine Coast Cricket Association as director of cricket, and also coached the Maroochydore Cricket Club, the men's team, which is another great little club, and some great people there too. And you know, I do miss that, and obviously miss the family as well. But it's a great place to live, and such great facilities as well.
You mentioned the family there. How many kids do you have, Mark?
Two. I've got two girls, Amelia and Maddie. Maddie is on the Sunshine Coast, and my daughter Amelia still lives in Wellington.
Okay.
So she's turning 19 in February and doing her own thing. So she's very much, you know, 29 and tells me what to do, as daughters do. So get used to it. I know that you've just had a young daughter too. So.
She's already telling me what to do. I don't understand what she's saying yet, but when I do, God help me.
Yeah, you'll know. You just do as you're told. Trust me.
And your boy, he's in the Sunshine Coast?
No, Maddie, two girls. So I've got two girls. So Madison's, she turns 12, and she's the same. So she's turning 19, basically. She also tells me what to do. So, you know, I don't operate phones very well, but they seem to be able to work it out for me, and all these things that it's a different language now that I don't really understand too well.
Listen, I'm not from the technology era, so I'm learning like you are. I just about managed to set these Zoom calls up, and that's me. My wife helps me with the rest when it comes to the editing and everything else. Must be really difficult for you though. You spent quite a lot of time apart from the family, and it's not like you can just hop in a plane and pop over and see them. It's not like going from Edinburgh to London or something like that. It's practically impossible. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I find it hard, to be honest. I think there's a couple of us at Cricket Scotland at the moment that are not Scottish. So Shane Berger's obviously from South Africa, who's the men's coach, and a couple of other people in staff aren't from Scotland. So we tend to sort of not hang out, but we attract each other's attention a little bit, go for coffees, and I'm seeing the sights, but it's pretty lonely, I'll be honest with you. It's hard, and although you can speak to them, and I speak to them every day. I've got my mother and father in Hawke's Bay too. So, you know, I haven't seen my daughter and parents in Wellington and New Zealand and Hawke's Bay for nearly 2 years now. So yeah, it's not easy.
That's tough, mate. That is tough. Does that? How do you keep that drive? You know, I've spent time away from home, so I can relate to what you're saying. But I wasn't married with kids at that time, so I don't understand how difficult that would be. My wife went to visit her family in Poland for 4 or 5 weeks, and I was over it by the end of the first few days was all right, but a peace and quiet from the little one. But then, like you say, it becomes very lonely, nobody around, you know, you're used to being around your family. How do you keep that motivation going? I take it you've got a very supportive wife.
Yeah, Mel's great. You know, I mean, she's been there through thick and thin, and you know, she's brilliant. And so we talk a lot, obviously, when we can. The time difference is a little bit hard because she's heading to work and I'm heading to bed. So that's a little bit strange. I'm having breakfast and she's having dinner.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm lucky that we live in a great city, so I can explore new things and walk, and I enjoy having a coffee and sitting down quietly and making notes. And those sorts of things. Do a little bit of reading as well. I enjoy reading and listening to podcasts like yourself, and still keep in touch with the likes of Grant Bradburn, and who live around the corner from me in New Zealand. It's a small world, but chatted to Mickey Arthur the other day and Flower from Pakistan, the Pakistan days, and so just keeping in touch with people and trying to keep busy. But you do have your lonely moments, and you think a lot about it, and sometimes you get upset, I guess, and show your emotions.
Yeah, I can understand that. It can't be easy. Listen, you're always welcome over in Glasgow. Ever fancy a coffee or a bit of sightseeing in Glasgow, give me a shout.
Yeah, definitely will.
And we'll get a wander around. I'll show you the good part of Scotland.
Brilliant.
One of the things I want to talk to you about, and this is something when I looked into your backstory, Mark, I could relate to you on so many levels in different ways, but in very similar ways as well. And that's something that you have had, and it's public knowledge that you've had struggles with your mental health, to the point where you were getting bad thoughts. Been there myself, not a nice place to be. When did this all start?
Probably late 2015, 16, early 16, I think. And I was just battling with some stuff at work, and one board member in particular was trying to move me on because I happened to be doing a bit of coaching, and I don't think he realised how bad he was having an effect on me. And then a lot of things built up. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and things got a little bit dark and got darker. And then I just snapped, and it wasn't good. But thankfully, Mel, being a nurse, knew exactly what to do and how to deal with it, because obviously with her training that she'd done, and dealt with it brilliantly well. And then I remember, I don't even remember how I got out there. I just remember sitting in this department store by myself thinking, I need to do something here, because if I don't, I'm going to lose my daughters in a marriage, and that's probably not a good place to be either. So yeah, I went and seeked some counselling out. I was very, very lucky that I had a counsellor that related to me, and he'd had a lot of drinking issues in his time, and I think I don't know, it was just meant to be that he understood everything I was going through. And it went back to family and father and living in his shadow a lot, and just really frustrated at my own life. And so then it kind of turned around a little bit, I guess. And so we got married 2017, but I still wasn't that great. But we got there in the end. And then I thought, you know what? I was sitting on a couch watching Pakistan play New Zealand and watching these poor girls get hammered. And I knew Mickey Arthur was in Pakistan.
Yep.
And so I kept in touch with him infrequently, because I knew Mickey from the Western Australian days. He was the men's coach and I was involved in the female side. So I said, look, Mickey, if there's any opportunity, and he came back, and thankfully he said, look, I reckon there is, because it hasn't gone so well. The World Cup 2017 for Pakistan was terrible. They didn't win a game. And within a couple of days, I had this phone call from this chap at night. And I thought it was a work colleague. I thought it was my mate, Keith Vincent, who works for Waikato Valley. He put someone up to it, because it almost didn't sound like a Pakistani accent, if you know what I mean. I thought, oh, okay. And he was a lovely chap, Haroon Rashid, who played for Pakistan, actually.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And he said, it's Haroon Rashid here, and we're very interested in talking to you, and blah, blah, and Mickey Arthur's. So anyway, I put the phone down, and Mel said, who was that? I said, I think it's KV having me on work. Anyway, I said that apparently there's going to be an email arriving soon. So it won't be, it'll just be KV. And short story is that an email did arrive. It was Haroon Rashid. And before I knew it, I was on a plane about 3 or 4 weeks later, heading towards Pakistan. So whilst I'd been through these issues for about a good, or nearly a good year and a bit, people then all of a sudden close to me said, are you completely faulty? What are you? You're going to go to Pakistan, and yet, you know, you haven't been in a great place. What are you thinking? And I said, well, I don't know, but, you know, the countdown began. And then before I knew that, I was checking in at Emirates and on a plane and thinking, what have I done?
I read a bit about it, and I read an article that you'd done, and it sounded like it was reading it, and the way it was coming across, it was like, I'm doing this, but it's a complete blur, and I don't know what I'm doing now. Am I right in saying that you had to pay for your own flight?
Yeah, so the deal was that they would look at me and I would look at them. And that was the deal. I'd get them through the New Zealand series, and it worked out that obviously coming from New Zealand, I knew a little bit about the team that we were playing against, which was New Zealand, which was weird in itself. So there was like a trial period, and they would pay me a daily rate, but I would pay for my flights and they would put me up in accommodation. So it worked a little bit out both ways. Yeah, and I remember that because Mel basically checked me in because I said, I can't do this anymore. She said, well, you're going to have to, because we've paid for the bloody flight. So you're going to have to check in because we're not backing out now. So she basically checked me in, said, this is him, here's his passport, you know, bags, off you go, see you later. And that was it. I remember saying goodbye and just sitting in this plane for 17 hours to Dubai from New Zealand thinking, this is terrible. I can't sleep. I don't know what I'm doing. And then obviously landing in Lahore and being escorted off with armed guards, which then I thought this is quite good fun. Brilliant. There's police cars in front, behind, armed guards. Oh, big celebrity now, made the big time.
Yeah.
And then they dropped me off. The door closed. I was lying on the bed, and then it suddenly dawned on me, why would they have all those police around me if it was? And then I went into another tailspin. And then had to meet these young female cricketers who weren't sure, A, they couldn't understand me. That was the first thing. And B, they thought, why are you here? And because we're not very good. So it was quite an interesting experience trying to sort of say, well, we're here to get better and we're going to give this a go, this New Zealand series, and see what happens.
I want to make a special mention just now to your good lady, Mel. Your wife, she sounds like she's been a big part of, you know, you mentioned she had experience and had been trained on, you know, mental health and noticing if something's not right. Sounds like she got you going in the right direction there. Really good to hear that you got a counsellor that could relate to you. And then she was the one that pushed you over that line to take what at the time would have been a big risk, heading over to massive cultural change. I've got Pakistani roots, so I know what you would have been going to. Great people, but totally different to anything you would have experienced. So were you based at the National Academy where Grant is as well?
Yeah, so we're at the National Academy. At that stage, Grant wasn't there. So it was, and I although I knew Mickey, I wasn't really close to him. You know, yeah. I mean, we were acquaintances, I guess, but you know, there was Mickey and Grant Flower, Grant Luden, and a couple of other guys that were on the coaching staff of the men who were really welcoming. And so I felt that at least I knew some people, but then, you know, within a week or so they were gone. So I was by myself for a week or so before we then went over to Dubai and played New Zealand. So it was a little bit of a difficult time, but I remember being called to the chairman's office on about day 2, Najim Sethi, who was the chairman back then. And he said to me, big, massive office, huge office. It was like, this is like my house. It's massive. And people running around. I've never seen so many people running around. I just ordered a water and there was biscuits and water. I thought, this is brilliant. And he said to me, Mark, we just need to lose by a smaller margin. So if you can just reduce it down from 100 runs or 9 wicket losses down to about 40, I think we've done well.
No pressure.
And I said to him, look, Mr. Sethi, I'm a cricket coach. I'm not a magician, but I'll give it my best shot and see what we can do in these, you know, next, I think it was about 20 odd days that we were playing New Zealand. And anyway, we managed to, for whatever reason, we managed to just lose the first one by about 6 runs. And we just we got too excited and lost, and then we for the life
moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I think he was pretty happy with that. 6 runs was like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
And then we got beaten in the second one badly, and then it didn't go so well. And then by the third one, we'd won. So for the first time ever, we beat New Zealand ever in Pakistan's history. And it was like they'd celebrated like it was the World Cup. So that's, you know, that
where was the game? Where were the games played, Mark?
They were played in Sharjah.
Okay.
So they were all played in Sharjah, and we got beaten in the T20s. I mean, we were expected to, because Devine whacked us all out of the park, and it wasn't our strength at that particular stage. So we went back, and then I remember that too, because I was in the hotel and getting ready to go, and I got a call from Haroon again saying, we'll be in touch soon. I think we might want you back for the series in January.
Okay. So
I flew out from Dubai, went home, and then obviously I got a contract from that January period on from what we did with the team. So. And
did they get your flights covered this time?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a little bit of negotiation.
You earned your right to get that flight paid for. What a story! How did you find Pakistan in general? How did you find the cultural change? Speaking to Grant on the podcast, it sounded like he probably missed his family and things from home, no doubt about it. But also sounded like he really connected with all the people around him in the academy and had a really loving relationship with them.
I loved it. I just really enjoyed the players. I enjoyed the people. The policeman that used to guard me still rings me probably every 4 or 5 weeks. That's and we have a little chat. I don't really understand what he's saying, but he's learned a little bit of English, which was fantastic. So I had him for about 4 or 5 weeks, and then they change it. But he still rings and says hello. And it's just a beautiful country. People don't really understand how beautiful it is. I mean, you will relate to this, but it's just magnificent people, so loving and caring, and just, you know, they just go out of their way. I was over there for Christmas and my birthday, and the girls surprised me with presents and lunch out, and because they knew that Christmas was important to me.
Yep.
So, and I remember that, you know, I got a phone call to say, can we have a hit? And I thought, really? On Christmas Day? Give me a go. I thought, well, I'm not doing anything, you know, it's not like so I did, but they said, well, no, sorry, we won't do it. But can we pick you up? And I thought, okay, this is interesting. Where are we going? And then they all surprised me. They were all at this cafe waiting for me. So with presents and balloons and all sorts of things.
That's what it's all about, eh?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, because you would have probably really, really extra feeling it on Christmas Day, and the fact that you're in predominantly a Muslim country, there wouldn't have been much going on. But great that they gave you that respect to acknowledge how important a day it was, and a surprise party. I'm sure that perked you up a little bit and made you feel, you know, I'm loved here and I'm cared for, and that stuff like that. It's just, that's what it's all about when people travel to other countries. I think you need to care for people that come there, and it's great to hear, because Grant is very similar to the way you've spoke about your experience in Pakistan. And I think now more and more, obviously, cricket is coming back more and more to Pakistan, and it's all positive that's coming out of it, because it is an amazing country. Sad what happened many years ago with the Sri Lankan cricket team, but amazing to see that things are moving forward and evolving, because as you probably noticed, it is cricket crazy over there.
Yeah, it is. It is cricket crazy over there. And I know that the media are really tough on our girls. And so, you know, it was very sad sometimes to just see the criticism that they receive, because I don't think they realised how hard these young ladies worked. And they were true ambassadors of the country. And we got a little bit better, which was great. But they were still pretty harsh on them when they lost. And
that's just Pakistani cricket for you, Mark.
Yeah,
it is very hard to, even when you're winning, one defeat for the men's team and the world's ending. It's just it's a sad state of affairs that it is, especially with the media, and the fact that they would have been probably quite close-minded towards the women's cricket team. There's no point beating around the bush. They would have been, but where did you get to in your stint? You had 2 years there. From taking the role and then getting thumped by 100 runs and losing by 9 wickets, where did things get to?
Well, the New Zealand series was really the start of the momentum that we created. Then we went to Sri Lanka and beat them 3-0 and 2-1 in the T20s, which was probably expected because I always thought that we were a little bit better than them. Went to the Asia Cup, had a disappointing Asia Cup there. We finished third. And then so we reassessed where we were and what we needed to do, because I just thought our T20 game wasn't where it needed to be. Then we had a series win over the West Indies. That was in the ODIs and just missed out on the T20s 3-2, which I thought was a pretty decent result. Mm-hmm. Then went to South Africa and drew the ODI series with them 1-1.
Wow.
And then just missed out again, unfortunately, 3-2 in the T20s. But again, I thought it was a pretty decent result. And in between that, we went to Bangladesh and beat them 3-0. We qualified again for the T20 World Cup. We got beaten by Australia, but 5-0, which is expected. But I actually thought that we played some decent cricket then. And the Aussie girls were like, where are the rest of your staff? Like, you've only got 6 staff here. We've got 12. So what happens here? I said, well, this is it. We all double up. Said, yeah. Do you? Huh, that's amazing. We don't. we got security here as well. I said, we're in KL. I said, you don't need security in KL. There's enough security around. No, they had everything. But that was a great learning for us, I think. And again, just turned that team around and had some belief. So in the end, in the ICC Women's Championship, we finished ahead of New Zealand in 5th place, and we just missed out to South Africa qualifying for the World Cup, so by a point. And then I moved on in 2019 because I thought, well, I'd done 2 and a bit years then. And I'll be brutally honest, I didn't like the direction it was going. I thought the new lady that had taken over wasn't really my cup of tea. Sana was being pushed out, and I thought she needed another year in that team before they wanted to move her on. So I thought it was premature by a year. And in the end, she got pushed out as well. So, and I kind of knew that was happening, unfortunately. So I just thought, no, I'm getting out, and left. But even this week, hearing from the Pakistan girls, I had a phone call from Sana, 5 or 6 text messages from some of the players that have always kept in touch. And Bismar's had a little baby girl who was the captain of Bismar Maroof, who was the captain. So such cool things to hear about, and still be able to keep in touch with them, which I think is another great thing about coaching. You keep in touch with these players, and they turned my world around. I was in a bad space.
Yeah. You
had to be happy with them because of some of the backgrounds that they came from. You couldn't come with your sad face, and I'm feeling sad about myself face because I'm missing home.
Yep.
What some of the stories that they had paled into significance. So all of a sudden you learn to be happy because your life's not too bad compared with some of the struggles that they're having to go through.
Love it. Loved it. I was looking forward to hearing about the whole Pakistani experience, and sounds like it was the best decision you made. And you evolved, and you got to start working through some of the challenges that you were having, and had a great influence on all the girls. And sounds like from when you got there to when you left, Mark, you left things in a far better place, and you certainly cut down that gap. I mean, all those series you were just talking about there, you won some, and even when you came up against the big teams in South Africa, etc., they were close series. So you clearly were moving things in the right direction.
Yeah.
But as all good things come to an end, and new challenges are on the horizon, how did the old Cricket Scotland role come about? Did a certain Mr. Grant Bradburn have any influence on that, or how did that all come about?
Well, strangely, you should say that. Lee Kasperick, who plays for New Zealand but also played for Scotland. Okay. I first met her in Western Australia, and we were talking a bit, and she was playing for Scotland at that stage, and she said, look, I said, wouldn't it be cool? We ended up coaching together. I sort of mentored her a little bit in her coaching. She was starting out her career in coaching and playing for WA. And we were away with the under-17 team, and she showed me this footage of Scotland. I said, one day, wouldn't it be cool to be able to coach Scotland? She said, are you kidding? I said, no, maybe, I don't know. She said, no, you won't want to coach Scotland. They're not very good. And she was playing for them back at that stage. And she was saying, you know, they pay their own way. They backpack basically everywhere and play. And then lo and behold, this job came up. And as I do, you know, I just thought I just need one more challenge before I hang up my coaching boots really and start to settle down and maybe just do the odd bit of coaching. So I'm going to give this a go because it's something that always sort of nibbled away at me way back in 2010 when I was speaking to Lee. So I thought, no, I'm going to apply. I'm going to give this a go. And I knew that there was another bloke that had applied for the job who was a pretty decent coach, Mark Robinson, actually. Mm-hmm. And I had heard that he may have applied. So, and I met Mark when we were away at the 2018 World Cup. So I sort of, again, touched base with him and he ended up getting the job at Warwickshire. And Gus offered me the job and the role. And we had a bit of confusion with COVID, but eventually I got here and in March 31st, so the 1st of April, I basically took over, spent my days in isolation, and then my first weekend, I coached in snow. And I thought, well, I was coaching in 40-degree heat, but snow was a completely new, never done it before. And I remember saying, and you know what it's like, you have this new coach and all the players are thinking, well, you know, we've got to impress him. And I said, ladies, happy for you girls. It's snowing. I'm happy for you girls to call it quits. Thinking brilliant. The coach has just said, we'll call it quits. We'll finish. No, let's carry on. Yeah. Oh my Lord. I'm nearly got frostbite here. Call it off. I don't mind. You're all in the team. So we carried on for another half hour in the snow, but you know, it was great. And then since then we've sort of we played that series in May against Ireland, and that was an eye opener for me. Massive. I know that we beat Ireland the first game, and then we missed out in the next three quite poorly. So I definitely knew that we needed to change the way that we played, and quickly, because I didn't really think we were going to make a lot of progress if we kept playing like that. What were the main issues that you identified in the playing that you thought this needs to be rejigged? Well, like all good females, they think too much. Yeah. You know, your wife, my wife, every female really, and that's no disrespect. Yep. They're great thinkers because they're very organised. Yep. And I just felt that they were more concerned about getting out than they were about hitting the ball. So I took a little bit of time and understood the regional series, and I basically said, no, let's not do that. Let's just get the best 24 or 26 players that we've got in Scotland, mm-hmm. and even them out evenly into teams and play a super series. Good pitches, good umpires, you know, the proper ICC standard that we would face, knowing that the global qualifiers were coming up in August. And it worked. And we went about and, you know, I was doing a lot of one-on-ones with them, and I said, I want you to start hitting the ball. We've got to start hitting the ball, and we've got to start. If you get 10 off 4 balls, brilliant. Don't worry about your average. Just that is fantastic. And they were brilliant. The series ended up 5-5 between the two teams. And then I just thought we may have just turned a corner. But the August qualifier, which was obviously last week, was going to be a big test for us because we had Catherine and Sarah and Absahar playing in the 100. And so they hadn't seen a lot of the Super Series, but I was confident that they would fit in with us rather than us fitting in with them. So we went to Stirling just before we left and had a 3-day camp there, and we did some different things. We were sliding on tarpaulin, getting them to slide in the field with dishwashing liquid. We were catching eggs to try and get our soft hands and our base. And we did some team building things where, you know, they had to rescue someone that had blood spurting out of their arm, and they had to work together and try and sort things out. And then we played some boys teams before we left. And that was the big test for me. I thought we'll either go into our shells or we'll keep playing like we did in the Super Series. And we managed. It was an under-15 Eastern Knights team and Warriors team. We managed to beat them both. Yeah. So we beat them twice, one on the Friday night, one on the Sunday night, and scoring 137, and I thought, right, we're in a little confidently within myself, without letting them know, that I think we're in the right space to take on the Dutch, who we had first up last week.
You mentioned the three girls there, Abtaha and the Bryce sisters. I mean, what an exciting time for the three of them. Two of them made the final. One of them won. Sarah's team won the whole competition. Millions and millions of people watched them play cricket on TV. Their reputations have gone through the roof. But for Scottish women's cricket, now from when I started playing junior cricket in Scotland, there was one girl that I knew. I've actually done a podcast with her. She's called Barry Maxwell. She was the only girl that I knew that played cricket. She was pretty good, actually, but there was no route for her really to go. She struggled for opportunities. There was none there. For all these other girls in the Scotland squad now, they must be looking at those three and thinking, I want to get some of that action as well now. And for the next generation who have watched them on TV, we did a summer camp at our local cricket club, Kelvin Cricket Club. We had 50% girls, 50% boys. And quite a lot of the girls, it was just from the parents said, oh, they've seen the cricket on the TV and they wanted to give it a go. So that clearly it works. Is that something that you're encouraging through all the squad, that, you know, this is the benchmark? This is where you could all get to if you want it bad enough?
Yeah, and it's interesting you should say that, because I think we've got a couple of really good little players in there, the young ones like Elsa Lister and Catherine Fraser, a couple of very young, impressive players. And strangely enough, I had an email the other day, when we got back Tuesday, from Nathan Horrocks, who deals with former Australian player who's working with Queensland Firewoman and the Brisbane Heat woman, saying, you got any spinners? We're looking for them. So straight away, Catherine Fraser, Abtaha Maqsood. So I've forwarded their names to him now, whether something comes of that. But just through those contacts alone, doors could open for our girls. And that's fantastic. You know, Abtaha obviously did pretty well. The Bryce sisters didn't really get a bat, but, you know, that's the way things go. But we're on the map. And I think there is a very clear pathway. What we need to do in Scotland is make sure that we are really getting from under 15s all the way through, that there is a clear alignment of what we need to do and how we want to play. So how we play at the Wildcats should be filtered down. So when players come through from club cricket, they understand that strike rates are really important and we want to be really positive. And so I think there's a little bit of work to do around there. I think there's a little bit of work to do around the basics. And that's from the top down too. But I think it's heading in the right direction. And probably last week is a little bit of a reflection of what can be done if we just start believing in ourselves and have a little bit of fun playing the game rather than worried about whether we fail or not. Because as you well know, you're going to fail more times than you succeed in this game.
Yeah. Well, I was going to come to that, La Manga. You go out there, bearing in mind that, as you mentioned earlier, you had not a great successful series in Ireland, where it started really well, but we filtered off and lost the next three. And we had the Dutch, followed by the Irish. So the two big games that you're going to face first up, girls seem to just boss both games pretty convincingly. I was sitting at home, so I didn't get to see it all, but you were there. It looked like that from following the scorecards and stuff, that it was just quite one-sided.
Yeah, I think the Dutch game was potentially a big banana skin for us, because they're an unknown quantity, and strangely enough, I know the coach of the Dutch team quite well from my days in Wellington, so I knew that he would have them going pretty well. And yeah, we did face the two hardest teams first up, so that was pretty tough. But the Irish game was the interesting one, and so we beat the Dutch pretty convincingly, and then we had a little chat at night and said, there's no pressure on us. We're not expected to win this, but there's a hell of a lot of pressure on them. And I'd read a little bit about Ed Joyce before the series started, where he said publicly that there's a lot of pressure on the Irish to obviously win this. We need to win. We're the top nation going. We're expected to win. It's going to be an intense tournament. And I thought there's going to be a little bit of tension around there. So we just made it really relaxed. Really relaxed, just play your game, don't worry about it too much, let's just go out, have fun, do the basics. And it was that day that we played Loch Lomond, which I'd heard of the song before, the great Scottish song, and we were in a tent, And I looked around and the girls were clapping to this Loch Lomond. And I looked over at the Irish tent and they didn't know what was happening. They could not work out what was going on. We had girls doing the Scottish Highland Fling. And I'm thinking, this is brilliant. We're up here. We're going okay. The Irish then made a very poor attempt to sing one of ABBA's songs to try and, because they didn't know what to do. So Dancing Queen, well, with all due respect to the Irish, who are normally pretty good singers, these girls would have been a no from me if it was, Britain's Got Talent. It's definitely a no from me. And our girls were dancing, and I could see the Irish girls just thinking, whoa, this isn't meant to be happening. So I remember just saying to the girls before they went out, and I handed it over to Catherine, I said, girls, all I want you to do is go out there and just be the best that you can be and have some fun with it. Don't worry, if you drop a catch, I don't care. But I do care that if you show emotion and you get really sad and start kicking the turf and hitting your thigh and smacking your head, and that's when I do care, and I'll get a message out that it's to stop. But if you drop a catch, because we're all going to, just keep going. And we did, but then we got scared again. And I think we were 24 for 1 chasing 90 in the 10th over. And Catherine was in, and I said to her, Catherine, you've got to play. You've got to play. You've got to trust who's coming in and play. Just play, because otherwise we're going to end up 60 after 20 overs, and that's not how we want to play cricket anymore. And the pitches were a bit difficult, and she played a most magnificent innings. It really was a very special innings. But the girl that did change it as well was young Becky Glenn, who came in and blasted 22 off 19 and played how I know that she can play, and changed that whole game, and we ended up winning. Well, our girls, I think, were like, have we just won? So, well, we've beaten them. Now we've got a real chance with Germany and France to come, who aren't great cricketing nations. But again, we just had to calm them down. We had a rest day, which I think was a blessing for us. So we got together after the Irish win at night, and I just said, don't start drinking your own cordial juice. And as of midnight, it's fish and chip paper. It's history. It's done. It's finished. We need to concentrate on Germany, pull ourselves back together again and get over the line with them. And we played pretty well. And then we had France to go, which we were tired by then. And we, Catherine and Sarah went out. It happens sometimes with weaker opposition, but and that was it. The rest is history. But it's small steps. We're not world beaters yet by any stretch of the imagination. We've got a long, long way to go. But I think the way that we played and the attitude that we showed and the fun that we created is a starting point for these players.
So just a bit about your role when you're back in Edinburgh. You've had this great successful tournament. Congratulations to you and your squad. It was great viewing for everybody back home, and wonderful to see, because I think the Irish tend to have been tipping us for a while now. So it was great to get over that line. How does your day-to-day role go? I mean, I'd imagine they're not all professional cricketers. You can't have them all the time. How do you go about your business here?
Well, I do a lot of one-on-ones and do a lot of travelling. So we've got Becky Glenn up in Gordonston, and Elsa Lister in Huntly. We've got some girls in Glasgow, and obviously some girls in Edinburgh. So it's a lot of early mornings. So a lot of them have a hit before they start work, or it's after work, and when I can fit them in. And so it's a lot of stuff outside of normal work hours. But the rest of the time, what we're trying to do, and what I've been recently doing, we've got to do the arduous task of player reports, which this time is going to be pretty good because they're all pretty positive.
Yep.
But it's now thinking about how can we plan for the next group of players to come through, and I think that's really important. And what that looks like, camps, because we don't want to lose this momentum that we've created. But I think for the next group of players coming through, which are 15 and 16 and 14-year-olds, we need to make sure that they've got the basic skills, and that they are positive about their cricket without worrying about getting out, but being really positive about it, and being aligned, as I said earlier, with what's happening and how we want to play at the next level up.
So you're basically involved throughout. You're not just the national team coach. you're involved all the way down to grassroots. You're getting around different parts of Scotland, you know, seeing little nippers taking up the game here and there and having involvement with them as well. It's wonderful to hear. So you are kept busy then, Mark. It's not an easy gig.
No, and I jump into the men's team as well and help Shane out, just hitting a few balls and going down and throwing a few balls as well. So that's been really good too. It's freshened me up as well. So I sort of, you know, they practice pretty much Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we got back Tuesday. I was down with them on Wednesday, just throwing a few balls. I wasn't much used to them on Wednesday, but it's just great to be in and around them and seeing their build up to what's going to be a very important T20 World Cup for us as well. So that freshens you up, which is nice to be, you know, chatting to those guys, and the support that we had from them was just fantastic. You know, from everybody back home, it was brilliant to see. We always made a list of all the people, so all the girls, the players that the girls knew, obviously family and friends, and then, you know, Sana Mayer and Kyle Courtzer and George Munsey and Crossy and all these blokes that had sent tweets or were watching from afar. So to put it up on the board, and as you can see it, all of a sudden it goes, oh, so people are taking an interest in us. You know, yeah, that's a really supportive thing. And to see the guys tweet and be really happy for us, I think was a big thing. And Kyle was great because he sent a message to them after the Irish game, which just grounded them a little bit as well. But nice to know that others are taking an interest in Cricket Scotland.
No, I think we're in a far more healthier place than we were 5-10 years ago. Great that a lot of women paved the way for this generation to come through. And I think what you've touched on there is so crucial, that the next generation is already getting, you know, prepared to come through as well. I think you've got some fantastic role models in your squad, and I hope we get to see some more girls on the big scene. What's the future goals then for you? What are you wanting to achieve, you and your squad?
We've got the Commonwealth Games coming up in January, so there's one place left, which will be tough because, you know, you've got Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, the West Indies are going to be involved in that, and we're not quite sure where the series is, but we've got to give it a go. So again, we're going to have to be positive against those teams, but they're not unbeatable. There's no way that they're unbeatable as long as we keep believing in ourselves. So that's in January, and then obviously we've now qualified for the global qualifiers for, at the moment, I think it's set out for May, June of next year. So that'll be an exciting event for them to really focus towards. And again, you know, there'll be the US, I would suggest, and there'll be a team from East Asia Pacific, and Ireland will be there too. So again, it's 2 teams go through from that. So it's not, and then that'll be the big dance. So, you know, we're just got to believe in ourselves that can be achieved.
I think you're going in the right direction, sir. And it's been a real pleasure to talk to you today. You know, I think your story is amazing. I think you should be very proud of yourself, how you've bounced back. I imagine day to day, I can understand you're missing your family, but they support you, and you're on a mission. And I hope you can. I firmly believe that in these next 2 tournaments, you will do even better than you did in La Manga. So wishing you all the very best. Look forward to hopefully meeting you in person one day. But thanks very much for coming on and having a chat to me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for your support as well. It's much appreciated, and to everybody that supported us, we're very grateful and very humbled by it.
Appreciate it. Thanks again, Mark.
Shukriya.
Shukriya to you too, sir.